Welcome back to CBS News coverage of the inauguration of Donald Trump. You are looking inside the Capital One Arena, a major sports arena here in our nation's capital. And the pre-program is already underway. There are tens of thousands of supporters of President Trump gathered there waiting to hear from him. He will come and address the crowd there. And we've also seen set up a small desk where we are told the president will sign many of these nearly or more than 200 executive orders that will be a crackdown on immigration. He will dismantle diversity initiatives in the federal government. There are also some energy initiatives, and as the president outlined in his inaugural address, it will include his efforts to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America and Mount Denali back to Mount McKinley. So much still expected as Donald Trump is trying to quickly change things here in Washington and to, in his words, enter into a golden era of government. We want to continue our conversation about the Trump immigration policy and the ripple effects. I want to bring in CBS News correspondent Nancy Chen. She's at a farm in Chester, New Jersey, with talking to farmers there and how these plans could impact farmers. Nancy?
Nora, good afternoon. You talk to any farmer and they will tell you it is difficult work, but it is becoming harder and harder to stay in business these days. There was a 7% drop in the number of American farms from 2017 to 2022. That is 142,000 fewer farms in just 5 years, according to the USDA. These days, farmers are up against a whole host of issues, including higher costs for feed and fertilizer, climate change, as well as the outbreak of avian flu we're seeing right now. But few issues are as recurring and paramount as labor and the lack of it. That is why so many farmers we spoke with say that they're watching very closely to see how President Trump addresses this, given that he has vowed to launch the biggest deportation effort in American history. About 2/3 of farm workers in this country are foreign-born. And while many of them come to the United States for seasonal jobs legally through H-2A visas, a program that could expand in a Trump administration, the USDA estimates that 42% of crop laborers are undocumented. The group United Farm Workers tells us there is a lot of nervousness among farm workers right now. And the owner of this farm says his workers, they are all legally authorized. But what Trump does next is something that he and so many others around this country are watching closely. When we talk about the ripple effects of a potential mass deportation, labor is already hard enough to find as is. Could it be even more difficult to find across the board if that does happen? Well,
there's no question in the United States we have a shrinking workforce. There's more people retiring and aging out than there are entering the workforce. We're not producing as many children. And yet we have a growing economy that requires workers. So I think anything that happens from a policy standpoint that reduces people in our workforce is going to make it very difficult for industry, and certainly for agriculture. We rely on a lot of people. It takes a lot of hands to hand harvest fruits and vegetables. We're fruit and vegetable growers. We would be in big trouble if we lost workforce.
Yeah. Now, if a mass deportation did happen, economists we spoke with say that there wouldn't necessarily be a dramatic and drastic price increase at the grocery store for consumers, but there could be an increase in the produce that is imported into this country, which could lead to concerns about environmental and labor protections where they are produced. And that, in turn, Nora, could mean national security issues, as well as the acceleration of the closure of more American farms.
Well, Nancy, thank you. I want to ask you about that, though. Why wouldn't it lead to an increase in prices at the grocery store? If there are no workers and the increased labor prices, I mean, it's got to get passed on to someone.
Right, exactly. And it's a good question because there are so many fruits and vegetables that are being produced or being imported to the country right now. They're saying that this could speed up that process as well as lead to the more of a mechanization of farm produce that you see in this country.
Nancy Chen, thank you.